scheme that's now been in operation for 8 to 10 years in the UK. And it was recognised about 10 years ago that there's a need to... am I okay speaking at this speed? Is your English... This is okay?
Yeah. Okay.
Everybody understanding, yeah?
Yeah.
All right, good. Okay, so there's a need to professionalise teaching in higher education because research has been the main emphasis in universities, maybe obviously, right? But because of the changes to higher education in this country and the opening out of higher education to a wider population of students who have a range of different attributes, a range of different needs, teaching this wider population has become more problematic or of a challenge. It's not okay anymore in this country to just stand up and give a lecture for an hour or 2 hours. You can do that, but after maybe half an hour, half of the people will be asleep. So there's been a need to improve and raise the quality of teaching. And one of the ways to do that has been to provide or develop the professional recognition process that's based on a framework, professional recognition framework. So I'm going to probably talk for 20 minutes, and then if you have questions, then there's a possibility of questions after that. Now, I'm going to talk through this as if you were going to try to go through this process yourself. So I'm going to talk about the categories of recognition, the levels of recognition. I'm going to talk about the professional standards framework. So this is the recognition scheme is based on the framework, and then explain how to go through the process and the kind of reflective model that's needed to go through the process. There are 3 areas that we'll be talking about. So in this country, in the recognition of your teaching, there are 3 in higher education. There are 3 levels. We call them D1, D2, D3, or associate fellowship, fellowship, and then senior fellowship. There is also another level which is principal fellowship, which I'll explain briefly. Associate fellowship generally is for people very new to teaching or who only do teaching as part of their role. So if, for example, they may be a lab technician, a technician who does a little bit of teaching, maybe who doesn't get involved in assessment, they may be appropriate for associate fellowship, D1. Someone who's doing full-time teaching maybe is their main role, could go for fellowship, and fellowship is needs you to show your engagement, your activity in all these areas. So for associate fellowship, you may only need to show your activity in 2 of the areas, but for D2, for fellowship, you need to show activity in all the areas. Senior fellowship is a little bit different. You need to demonstrate your engagement or activity in all of these areas, but also it's a recognition of your impact, your influence in a wider way. So in a simple way, let me explain this. So a fellowship of the Higher Education Academy recognizes your professionalism Professionalism in your teaching practice, in your work with students, your ability to, A1, your ability to design and plan learning activities. So these could be teaching sessions, it could be a module, it could be a whole course. But it's about your relationship with students. So you're designing a learning activity for students. You're designing a module for students. A2, teaching and supporting learning directly with students. A3, assessment with students. When you get to senior fellowship, you demonstrate these things, but also your wider impact, not just with students, but with your colleagues, with your department, in your subject, in the university, across different universities. So, for example, if you were to develop an innovative new way of teaching, or a particular strategy, a new approach to assessment design, or a new approach to classroom management. A new approach. And you try it with your students this year. Okay, so you try it out with your students, and some bits are good, some bits are bad. So you try it again the next year, and it becomes better. And your colleagues start saying, how do you do that? Tell me how you do that. And then more colleagues say, well, how do you do that? And then your manager, your head of department says, well, can you put on a seminar or a workshop so that you can teach your colleagues how you did this thing? And then maybe another institution call you and say, well, can you help? Can you show us what you did? So you can demonstrate wider impact beyond just your students. That make sense? So that's what senior fellowship is around. So different levels of engagement with the framework. Just to explain how this works, to gain associate fellowship or senior fellowship, you would normally provide a piece of reflective writing. Do you understand what that means, reflective writing? Perhaps not. Okay. So, a written submission, a piece of writing. I'll explain now how this might look. Yeah. So if you're going for associate fellowship, it's a fairly short piece of writing, 1,400, all the way to senior fellowship, so 6,000 words, a more substantial piece of writing. Well, what do you write about? Okay. I'll come back to what we write about. So this is what you would provide in the submission. You pay for submission, different amounts. So if here, for example, at the Montfort University, we have a program, a professional recognition scheme, whereby any member of staff can be supported in doing their written submission. So we help people to write their submission in the university. And because the university is accredited, so it's an accredited scheme here, it's an accredited scheme, members of staff do not pay, because the institution has an accredited scheme, and we pay directly. If you are participating in an accredited provision with an institution, so for example, let me explain this, okay. Say, for example, you work in a college. It's not a university. Maybe this is too complicated. I don't know. Okay, let's not do this one. You can, if you're an individual, so any individual can apply directly. So you don't have to be in a university. You don't have to be with an accredited university. Any individual can apply directly for any of these, but the individual will have to pay. Now, if the individual comes from an institution that subscribes to the HEA, they pay this much. If the individual is completely in a different institution that has no relationship with the HEA, then you pay more. So it's best to be with an institution that subscribes and is part of the HEA. The Higher Education Academy supports people by, I can show you, by, we have templates.
Templates of submission.
Templates?
Of submission.
Yes. So there's yeah, that's right. Yeah. So for your written submission, let's have a look. Not bad enough. Anyway, you will. I can't find it. Anyway, I will send you this link, and you can. They will have this. They have the slide. They will get the slide. You'll get the slide, so you can experiment and find that link. Okay. So this you have. This is this. Okay. So I'm going to talk about this now. When the Higher Education Academy developed the professional standards framework, which is this, it's quite a. It was done very carefully, and it was done with care to identify the real activities that higher education teachers actually do. So in the United Kingdom, in this country, the framework is quite well respected. Very often when you have to gain recognition, sometimes it feels like it's playing a game. But actually the professional recognition scheme is recognized as being quite a useful way of thinking about the actual activities and the actual activities that a lecturer will do. So when we talk about the submission in a minute and the reflection that you have to do, it's reflecting on real things that you actually do as an experienced lecturer. So I've talked about the design and planning of learning activities. This could be the design and planning of, as we said, activities in the classroom, or a module, or a whole program. Teaching and supporting learning, that's the actual work with students in the classroom. Assessment and feedback, developing learning environments. What do we mean, do you think, by learning environments? What do I mean by learning environment? What's a learning environment? That could be a classroom. Learning environment. This is a learning environment. Yeah. What else?
Infrastructure, equipment.
Yeah, so it's the physical list, it's the equipment that you provide them with, like what equipment? Like a lab or audiovisual? Yeah, good. What else? Somebody else? I want somebody else. I want to hear from other people here. What else? What else is learning environment? Sorry? Software. So the virtual learning environment. Yeah, what else? Your classmates. Yeah. Okay, so the learning environment is the other people around you, right? And that can sometimes help, or it can sometimes be a problem. So the ability to manage the learning environment in the widest sense is something that we really do, right? So we really do. The learning environment, noise. A5 is about continuing professional development. But we always have to remind people it's not just a list of things that you do. So, for example, you're on the visit to England, right? You're on the visit here, you're here. Okay, so you can say, yeah, we're doing some professional development, right? Okay. When is it useful? How do you know that this is useful? How do you know that this trip is useful for you? What does that mean? Somebody else. What does that mean? A positive outcome. What does that mean? A test? For who? Student or teacher? Okay. Potentially. So look, you have got on the plane, you've come to England and you're listening to us, right? Talking to you. What's the point? Why? Why?
Because we need to be better.
Pardon?
We need to be better.
So how will we know, how do you know, if it makes you better?
We just hope.
Huh?
Feedback.
Feedback. So basically what I'm trying to say, yeah, absolutely. From who?
On the student.
Yeah. Okay, so continuing professional development is a waste of time. It's a waste of time unless it has an impact on what you do. Unless you get better. And getting better is, sorry, I'm shouting. Getting excited. Getting better is in your work with students. Okay, or with colleagues. And you know about that through feedback. So it's not just a list of continuing professional development. It's all about the impact on the learning of your students. That's what this is all about. The middle section, let's go on to the next one. I'll come back, I'm going to go backwards and forwards between these two slides, okay? So in writing your submission, we suggest that, or it has to be a piece of reflective work. What do we mean by reflection? Do you know what do we mean by reflection? Reflective practice. Do you know? Have you heard the term reflective practice? You have. Okay, so this is where you remember we talked about some innovative practice in the classroom, a new assessment, a new way of teaching. You explain what you did. So, you know, I've tried this new way of working in the classroom. I describe it. You then, in the written submission, say, well, why did you do it this way? I did it this way because I was trying to improve something where I got negative feedback from students. Or the students were not doing very well. And I'm trying to fix the problem by doing something new. Or the literature, the academic literature, suggests that this is a good way to do something. So you describe what you did, you describe the evidence for why you did it that way, and then through the student feedback, find out whether it worked. Either it was really, really good, or it was sometimes good, some not good, and then what do? You try something again, you improve it again, and so it's a reflective cycle. So in the written submission, we're asking for reflection on each of these. Okay. So, as you describe each of these in your subject, you will be also talking about your subject. So you will tell us that you have, by describing what you've done, you're doing it in your subject, so we will know that you have the correct knowledge in your subject at the right level. In providing the evidence, we will know that you're selecting appropriate methods for teaching based on how students learn, possibly with appropriate learning technologies, and that you evaluate. Okay, so this is they're really quite. The word is pragmatic. I don't know what the word is in Russian, but a very practical framework. Yeah. And then, crucially, importantly, you also demonstrate how your practice supports learning for a range of students. Yeah. In this country, maybe in Russia too, we have, and let me try and follow me with this, okay? So, academics who come to teach in university are academics. They're academics who learn because they're very intelligent, very academic. They learn very well through the traditional teaching approach in universities, through sitting with 200 other students listening to a lecturer. But these are academics. Not everybody is an academic. Many people at university are not going to be academics. So what do? Ignore them? Or try and find ways to open our teaching to a wider range of people? Yeah? Because if the world was full only of academics, it would not be a fun place, right? It would be academic. But we need all sorts of other people. And these are the values of including a range of people. So, this is the reflective cycle. This is too much detail. I've spoken about this already. And the final section is we require 2 references for every submission. So it's not enough just to write. Someone needs to provide the reference saying, yes, this person is really a teacher and really does these things. Yes. Now, you will get the PowerPoints so you can follow all the links. But I just wanted to give you a little bit of time if you want to ask any questions. If there's anything you didn't understand or would like to ask more, I'm happy for you to do that.
What are the benefits for this practice for non-UK teachers?
For non-UK?
Yeah.
Well, increasingly, it's recognized internationally. So the very same benefits, really, and I think it's likely to be gain more international recognition. So it's now, I don't think there's every university in this country would ask for fellowship or senior fellowship in a job specification for a job for teaching at university. And that's increasingly the case in Europe. Not everywhere, obviously, but I think it will probably increase. So it's the same benefits.